All right, so it's time for some Q&A. Now, as a dancer that's worked in 4 different countries, 9 different states within the US, everybody wants to know where was the best, where was your favorite? And the simple answer is, of course, the US is going to be the best place. And I don't say that because I am American. I say that because tipping culture in the US is better. And I just feel like the strip club culture overall, I'm not sure if strip clubs started in the US or at least the way they are now with the polls and the tipping, if that is like an American thing. I believe so, because in other countries, people don't really tip you. Second favorite country, I'd say Australia was a close second just because it's so similar to the US. I danced in both Sydney and Melbourne. I personally preferred Sydney over Melbourne because just the working conditions were better. I want to say in Sydney, you're only required to work like a 6 hour shift. In Melbourne, it was a full 8 hour shift. And you had to be on schedule 4 days a week. If you missed one of your shifts, there were fees. I don't know if it was like this at all the clubs. I only worked at Spearmint Rhino mainly, and then I worked like one shift at Goldfingers. I heard Goldfingers did not survive COVID. But yeah, so you had to be on schedule 4 days a week. If you missed a shift, there were some pretty hefty fines. And God forbid you missed 2 shifts, then you were just like, oh, there goes half the money I made my last shift. There was also fines for leaving early. There were just all kinds of fines. And it was also open till 7 a.m. So it was very reminiscent of working in Vegas. Third country, Tokyo, Japan. I was working there illegally, right? How did I get away with this? I showed up in person and they were like, okay, you're hired, but since you don't have legal papers, you're gonna have to just dress like a secretary. So I would dress like a secretary, sit on the floor just in case immigration did come. It was definitely a little bit of an adrenaline rush knowing that I could end up locked up abroad for doing this, but I did it anyway. So in Tokyo, the shifts were pretty long. I want to say they were like 10 hours or so. Management was nice enough to not require me to work. I think most of the girls they would require to work like 4 or 5 days a week. I got away with working 2. I think they didn't knew that I was on vacation and just having fun with it. But over there, so the dances are $70 for one topless dance. It isn't that easy to get dances though, because the guys generally they want to pick you. You're not really supposed to approach them the way you do in the US. Japanese culture is very different. It's very reserved. They don't like being approached. And oftentimes they do want the girls that speak Japanese. Now you think that because it's in Japan, I'm working with a bunch of Japanese girls. No, there was only like maybe 2 Japanese girls at the club, and most of the girls they were Eastern European girls that spoke fluent Japanese. I was the only American girl there. I usually am whenever I'm abroad. And people are always like, what are you doing here? Isn't it so much better in America? Yeah, actually it is. I'm just here for the experience. One thing I forgot to mention was that when I was dancing in Tokyo, it was topless only. People there are very weird about seeing genitals. Even if you've ever seen Japanese porn, you'll notice that the genitals are blurred. I remember I tried to show somebody, I tried to take my panties off, and the guy was like, no, he didn't even want to see it, which is it's hilarious to me now. That's one thing you have to keep in mind in Japan. One thing I did like about Japan though is that you do get a portion of drink sales. I want to say they're not allowed to do that in the US anymore because girls would sue the clubs for drinking and driving and when that was a requirement, which is why I think a lot of US clubs don't allow that. I do hear that in Hawaii they still have that where you do get a portion of drink sales. So you get 50%. But yeah, other than that, I wouldn't say the money was great in Japan, but better than the fourth country, right? The fourth country was in the Caribbean. It was in St. Martin. How did I end up in St. Martin? Because I was applying for international stripping jobs. And I was like, let's see what country is willing to give me the best deal. I had contacted this club in St. Martin and they said, hey, if you want to come, we have a place for you to stay. It's right across the street from the club. We'll pick you up from the airport. I was like, you know what? Done. You're making it so easy for me to arrive. It's just minimal risk. I had heard good things about St. Martin. I heard that it was a pretty fun island, that there was good clubs, good music, and off I went. However, the living situation, honestly, it was a borderline indentured servitude. What I mean when I say that is that you were required to work 6 days a week, which honestly was so unnecessary because there was usually too many girls given the number of clients there. And the owner, she also owned the house across the street and she would deduct your rent from your club fees. And it was so slow. I want to say my first week after like all fees and everything, I was left with $40. So I worked a few more days after that, and then I was just like, you know what, fuck it. I'm just not gonna work for the rest of my time in St. Martin. Like I'm better off just I found an Airbnb for 600 bucks a month. It was like a shared Airbnb. And I was like, I'm just gonna enjoy my time here. And it's true, they do have a fun beach club. They do have some pretty good touristy, fun events going on.